right. Good morning, everyone. I'm punctual. It's 10. We're going to get started. We've got a lot to get through this morning. My name's Darren Graham. I'm currently a director with the Youth Services Bureau in Ottawa. I'm also a board member of the Alliance to End Homelessness in Ottawa, and that's what brings me here today. A little bit about me. I've 20 years or so experience working in the sector and have a history of working in one of these sites. And when asked as a member of the host committee to showcase an innovative program, system, or project in the city, I was really grateful to be able to showcase these providers, not of course to do with youth, but around innovative practices and supportive housing in Ottawa that I think are worth showcasing. So a bit about the Alliance. It's a grassroots agency, at least in its beginnings. It's been around for almost 45 years in Ottawa, but incorporated about 15 years ago into a much more formal organization of 75 members looking to end homelessness through various means, like through research, advocacy, system planning, coordination, public education, and mobilization locally, and is proud to be the host member of, or the host committee member for the Canadian Alliance 2024 here in Ottawa. So on behalf of the Alliance to End Homelessness, welcome, and welcome to our session. Before I go forward, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. So Ottawa is located on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. Put simply, these lands were stolen from the traditional keepers for the purposes of settlers. Dispossession of land is just one form of ongoing colonization that has led to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people disproportionately experiencing homelessness. Research shows that Indigenous people account for up to 20 to 50% of total homeless populations in cities like Ottawa. We're grateful for the work of Indigenous scholar Jessie Thistle, who teaches us about the 12 dimensions of Indigenous homelessness that make clear the connection between historical and ongoing colonization and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in homelessness. Truly, to have an impact on homelessness in our community, we must lead with this knowledge. Embracing Indigenous leadership and collaboration is crucial to ensuring the prevention, reduction, and ultimate end of homelessness. The Alliance to End Homelessness in Ottawa supports a call for a fully funded Indigenous housing strategy with an Indigenous-led governance structure. And this acknowledgement is meant to be a reminder of the responsibility we all have to Indigenous peoples and a commitment to reconciliation. So, welcome to our session on exploring innovative practices in housing and homelessness in Ottawa. Today we're going to highlight intensive supportive housing programs that address the medical, mental health, and substance use needs of individuals exiting long-term and chronic homelessness. We have 4 providers with us today who will share their insights on program innovation successes and the importance of partnerships in helping individuals maintain stable housing. First, we'll hear from Tabitha Morris, who's the team lead of case management at Ottawa Inner-City Health. She has been with Ottawa Inner-City Health since 2019 and is a leader in harm reduction community. Tabitha advocates for criminal justice reform and works to improve conditions for people who use drugs. At Ottawa Inner-City Health, she oversees a case management team and peer teams across 12 healthcare units. She'll be discussing their partnership with various providers to meet the medical and mental health needs within Ottawa, shelter, and supportive housing systems. Then we'll hear from Adrienne Sisiakin. She holds a BA in Human Rights and an MA in Conflict Studies, and since 2019, she has worked at Shepherds of Good Hope, where she is now serves as the Senior Manager of Program Development and Engagement. Adrienne supports the supportive housing portfolio and future program planning for the agency. She will present their Continuum of Care, which is a purpose-built ecosystem designed to meet individuals at different stages of their journey with services distributed throughout Ottawa. Then we'll hear from Eva Davis. She is a First Nations residential coordinator at the John Howard Society of Ottawa, working in supportive housing since 2017. She's known for her leadership and community development skills. Eva advocates for actionable reconciliative work and promotes Indigenous-led perspectives in all of her endeavors. She'll be discussing the enhanced supportive housing programs that include medical and harm reduction services, highlighting their newest site designed for Indigenous women focused on culturally appropriate care. And then lastly, we'll hear from Davika Pavar. She's the evening manager at Cornerstone Housing for Women, where she builds supportive relationships with residents. She has a master's in social work and focuses on social equity and stigma reduction in her work. And she'll be sharing Cornerstone Housing for Women's supportive housing programs for women and gender-expansive individuals experiencing homelessness, emphasizing their Aging in Place program and the culturally appropriate partnerships for the nearly 300 women who call Cornerstone home every night. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion on innovative practices addressing homelessness in our community. And Over to you, Tabitha.
I just enter. Arrows? All right. Good morning. I am honored today to be representing Ottawa Inner City Health, talking about our role in partnership with these many wonderful agencies located locally in our community. So a little bit about us. So we opened in 2001 as the child of Wendy Muckle, our previous CEO, and Dr. Turnbull. Our first program was the hospice program, which is in partnership with the Ottawa Mission. And it was opened in response to the HIV/AIDS epidemic that was happening, where our folks were dying in undignified ways on the street. So it gave people an opportunity to kind of die in peace and get respite. Currently, it's being used for respite from other programs as well as palliative care. We're a nursing-led organization, and recently we've seen a shift from being mainly shelter-focused to being very much housing-focused. The folks that we serve are people who use drugs, people who have complex mental health issues, folks who are homeless or precariously housed, and those folks who might be from minority communities. We believe that everyone has a right to housing and healthcare. We also embrace folks' autonomy to choose kind of what they want for their lives. They are the leaders in their own lives, and we want to follow with them. And we also believe that we need to use a harm reduction framework to be open for everybody. And we support folks who use drugs, and we don't require people to be abstinent to be a part of our programming. So a bit about our programs. Every one of our programs is only made possible through partnership. So our shelter-based programs, as I said, the Diane Morrison Hospice is located at the Ottawa Mission. Men's Special Care Unit is a unit that is specialized for men coming from hospital who might have complex health issues or might have wounds that need to be dealt with, or they might need daily medications that are just not available for them in the regular shelter. And this is in partnership with the Salvation Army. We also have the TED program, which is Targeted Engagement and Diversion, and that's in partnership with the Shepherds of Good Hope. This program takes paramedic OPS referrals from folks who have overdoses in the community. And so folks, a lot of our folks don't want to go to the hospital, which is understandable. They've been treated like crap there, so they come there for recovery. Alternatively, we can take overdoses from the street as well as our supervised consumption site. Our supportive living partnerships, Maryville Road and Ridgecraft and the Oaks, are all in partnership with Shepherds of Good Hope. As well as Booth is in partnership with Cornerstone. Carruthers and Rita Thompson are in partnership with John Howard Society. And some other programs, we have our supervised consumption site, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's located within the Shepherds of Good Hope. We have the Diamond Health Clinic, so folks can walk in and get seen. They have dentists, optometrists, that type of thing, and that's in partnership with the Ottawa Mission. We have our lovely Block Leader program, which I'll be presenting tomorrow about. But this is a program that is for the community, by the community. It is also in partnership with the Byward Market District Authority, as well as other stakeholders in the community. We have our TELUS van that is very much used for that, but it is used for other things like lodge visits and things like that. And that is funded by TELUS, as well as our Safer Supply programs, which are offered in each and every one of our housing. So a little bit about the structure of how it works. So we usually have the housing or shelter provider as the landlord or space keeper. Then generally for each unit, I say we have the unit mother, which is generally the nurse coordinator. As I said, we are nursing led. So usually we have the unit mother, and then we have daily staff as CCWs, or registered practical nurses for medical care. In some of our programs, we also have mental health nurses in those programs as well that are mainstay in that program, and we share mental health nurses across all the other programs. On the other side of it, then we have the program team lead, which is myself. I help coordinate all the appointments that the nurse coordinator puts in, and then we have program peers that take folks to their appointments. We'll support them with those appointments. Our program peers also have groups that they run within the shelter or even within supportive housing. Recently, I've made a shift to have program peers designated to a specific program so that they can form more connection within that program and build more support for the residents that live there. And then lastly, I have another arm, which is called residential peers. So these are folks who are in their housing looking for something to do and are real leaders within their resident community. And then we have them come on for payroll. They have jobs for themselves like overdose prevention. So at one unit, they do overdose prevention. They take 3-hour shifts. They do door checks. Other ones run groups. And then I also have residential peers that take folks to appointments from their program. It comes full circle, and I think people need to be able to work within their housing to feel joy and build hope. So the harm reduction services that we offer from program to program can include daily medication, safer supply or OAT, opioid antagonist therapy. When John Howard and Inner City partnered originally for the Carruthers residents, it was a managed opiate program. So that was select doses that were observed. And then more recently, we've seen a shift with Safer Supply where it kind of creates some, why do I have to be supervised? Well, you get your med type thing. So most folks have switched over to Safer Supply and they have autonomy and choice of when they take their medication. We have mental health supports. We have the managed alcohol program, which can be run within supportive housing. Mainly the Oaks is a managed alcohol program. We also have Indigenous supports. I have an Indigenous peer on my team, and we work closely with a healer, Jenny, and we utilize her lodge out in Manotick. So we have clients that get referred, and we'll take them out on the TELUS van to the lodge so that they can experience their own land-based healing. We have safe site materials across all of our sites, especially within our supervised consumption site. We do support groups and counseling with Rita Woods. We have a partnership that runs groups within the shelter as well as supportive housing. Recently, Brave Button technology has been implemented in many of our supportive housing units, and we hold a lot of resident meetings. So that just continues to get feedback from residents. We do lots of community meetings within the shelter. It just allows everybody to input their opinions and their voices and feel part of the makings and changings of a program. And then we have program peer support. So onto the Brave Buttons. So we had Brave Buttons at Maryville, Rita Thompson, and Cornerstone Eccles location. In the last year, Brave Buttons created many connections to care. So not only is it an overdose response system, but it can also help with fights next door or I'm in pain, I need help. It has a lot of different modalities for it. How it works is folks push a button, it'll alert staff by text message, hey, 203's pushed their button. If it's an urgent push, so 2 times, then staff will come right away, but the hope is that staff will come within 5 minutes. Most residents have about a 3.5-minute arrival time, which is really great. It's caught about 15 really gnarly overdoses. And so how we kind of launch that is we have resident meetings talking about this technology. How would they feel about using this technology? We put signs up all over. We'll give it with your gear, let us know if you're push the button. And a lot of it is incentive driven. So I will do a program of incentives for like 3 months. Once a week in the beginning, I'll incentivize you, weed, cigarettes, gift cards, whatever you want, kind of for that safer use push. And then it'll go down to every 2 weeks and then once a month at the end. And how I know it is working is months after it's done, I'll have clients come like, hey, I missed my incentive. And I'm like, that tells me you're using your button, which is great. That is the incentive. So it's initially for our programs, it was funded by the City of Ottawa, but ongoing costs and kind of regulation of the program is covered by Inner City Health. We also do health literacy at Carruthers and Rita Thompson. So those are partnerships with John Howard. This allows residents to kind of get to know a little bit more about their health. They'll pick a topic. So it could be COPD, withdrawal symptoms, and they'll work with the program peer who's facilitating to be able to research and do a presentation. So if the resident does the presentation themselves, they'll get $20 for presenting, and every resident that attends get $10 for coming. So it's a weekly thing that goes on. Folks are really excited to take part in and be able to learn things or share knowledge with other folks. This program is funded by the Ottawa Community Foundation. Most importantly, program development and implementation is created and reevaluated through client consultation. So whether it's clients or residents, we have these community meetings where people's voices matter. People need to be included in the changing of the programs. It's a platform for meaningful and constructive conversations. It creates transparency in the program development, and it highlights the success and room for growth. And it hopes to build trust and give autonomy. So long as we keep our residents and our clients engaged, we can grow from here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Just really quickly, can I get a show of hands for anybody who is here but not currently working in Ottawa? Okay, great, awesome. Okay, that's fantastic. I see a lot of my coworkers and colleagues in the room, so I was like, this might just be a room full of people from Ottawa, which kind of defeats the purpose. But no, it's really great to have some of you from further away. So I work for Shepherds of Good Hope. We are a supportive housing, shelter, drop-in, and soup kitchen service provider. We've been around for over 40 years. At our very beginnings, we were just a few cots and some sandwiches in a church basement. And we've grown exponentially over the last couple of decades to provide what we call a continuum of care. So currently, we provide shelter on any given night to over 250 single adults experiencing homelessness in Ottawa. And also, as of April of 2025, we'll be providing permanent supportive housing to over 300 individuals in Ottawa in partnership with Intercity and various other agencies in Ottawa. So what do I mean when I say continuum of care? So this just very simply refers to our strategy to create and provide a continuum of supportive housing and shelter programs to meet varying levels of need for people at risk of experiencing homelessness or actively experiencing homelessness in Ottawa. As we all know, housing is not one size or one type fits all. I think if we really want to end homelessness in Canada, we need to collectively diversify and build capacity in different types of housing. So our continuum really aims to do a few things. So first of all, we really want to align with Housing First principles. Our housing programs are low barrier, and many of the individuals living in our residences are people who probably would not be successful elsewhere. Sorry, I'm just gonna wet my whistle a little bit here. So we also seek to provide graduated support, so allowing for transitions to move into more independent housing if that makes sense for the individual. We don't classify any of our housing as transitional because if a person wants to come and stay permanently, they're absolutely welcome and encouraged to. But some of these internal transfers and movements to graduated kind of lower intensity support programs happen kind of organically as people stabilize. Another really important thing that the continuum aims to do is to give people options and agency. So people have choices in terms of geographically where they want to live, what type of housing they want, what their own needs are, and what they think they need in a housing program. So this is kind of an overview of our continuum. I will try my best to get into a little bit more detail with the limited time I have in each of these programs, and I might jump back to this slide to help me do so. But essentially the continuum, sorry, I'll try to speak into the mic. The continuum starts over here with our shelter drop-in soup kitchen programming, where the needs of the individuals using these services are very high and complex. And then in the middle, and on this end of the spectrum, we have housing programs that provide on-site 24/7 wraparound supports in partnership with Intercity and various other agencies to provide that harm reduction focused support to people living in our programs. And then toward the other end, we do have a housing program and aiming to build more in the future that are more geared toward independent living. So we have daily on-site staffing, but not necessarily that 24/7 intensive healthcare focused support. And I will jump back to this slide. So on the far end, the high complexity end of the spectrum, I would argue that our shelter services are kind of like the front door to our organization. So this is where we meet people who are chronically experiencing homelessness or are new to homelessness with very complex needs. So as Tabitha mentioned, we do run in partnership together a targeted engagement and diversion program in our transitional emergency shelter. It aims to relieve pressure from emergency rooms, so people who are using substances in the community who would otherwise end up in emergency departments, they actually can come and recover safely under the monitoring of a nurse in the TED program at the shelter. And then we have more traditional shelter programs for men and women and gender diverse individuals, totaling all 3 shelter programs in one building, totaling over 250. And it's all on the same corner as our community soup kitchen. So it's a bit of a community hub there for people experiencing homelessness and a great way for them to enter our organization and then hopefully eventually move into our supportive housing programming, excuse me. This is a visual of the geographical diversity of our housing program. So we have a program in Canada, we have a program on Montreal Road, kind of east of downtown, and then throughout central Ottawa as well. And as we move into the future, we will continue to geographically diversify as much as possible, so people have that option to live in different locations in the city. And I think this is a great way to demonstrate as well to people who are arguing against the concentration of services that we're actually doing a good job at spreading out resources as much as possible. So these things are accessible throughout the city. So I'm going to hop back to this slide for a second and just talk about some of the innovative supportive housing programs that we're offering. So 1095 Merivale has 57 units. We just opened in 2023. The individuals living at 1095 Merivale are very newly exiting homelessness and experiencing complex physical health and substance use health concerns. We're working really closely with Ottawa Intercity Health, their nursing team, their peer support team, to help to stabilize these individuals and integrate them into the housing and into the community. Richcraft Hope is the program that's on Montreal Road. Many of the individuals living at Richcraft Hope residence have polysubstance use concerns and mental health concerns. So again, the complexity level is quite high. But we've been open since 2021. What we're seeing now is people living at Richcraft are stabilizing. Their substance use has been reduced a little bit. And now they're looking and asking like kind of what's next for me. So that's why we want to continue building and investing in housing that's maybe on the other end of the spectrum, so that those people have somewhere to go once they're stabilized. The Oaks is our primarily our managed alcohol program, again, in partnership with Intercity Health and other health agencies. We provide an hourly medically prescribed pour of alcohol to help stabilize people with chronic alcoholism issues. We also support aging at home at the Oaks. So many people who have experienced lifelong chronic alcoholism are actually welcome to age at home with the support for their alcoholism as well. And then 216 Murray is opening in April of 2025. It will support people newly exiting chronic homelessness as well, and with a priority for women and Indigenous individuals. And we're really going to work closely with Indigenous agencies here in Ottawa to provide that culturally safe programming for people living at 216. Hope Living is for people 55 plus. That's in Canada. There's 100 units there. And generally speaking, people living at that residence don't have substance use problems. So it's a really good option for people who have aged and their substance use has stabilized and maybe they want to abstain. And then finally, 208 St. Andrew is really focused on people who live with a high level of independence. That's like 40 years of work condensed into like 2 minutes. So thank you. I appreciate the patience. So the benefits of this service model, there are many, many benefits of doing it this way. And I want to emphasize that our continuum of care, it refers to our internal continuum, but also we have partnerships with these other housing providers to fill gaps. If the network of homelessness services in Ottawa is like a web, we're all collectively constantly looking for gaps in this web to create programs to prevent people slipping through the cracks of the web. So one important thing is eviction prevention. If someone is not being successful in one housing program, we have other options for them. The personal agency that I mentioned, people have choices about where they want to live and how they want to live. We've done a good job at resource networking. So different housing programs in different areas of Ottawa are benefiting from the resources in their specific wards, We have a continuum of substance use support. So some people will be living at Richcraft Hope residence and they're on the managed alcohol program. They're also smoking crack or smoking meth. And they're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So we can look internally and externally to say like, do we have other options for this person who actually does want to move into an abstinence-based lifestyle? And then we have graduated supports, and internal transfers actually free up space in the programs that are geared toward those people who are very newly exiting chronic homelessness. So like 1095 Maryvale, for example, the complexity levels are very high in that program and the supports are there. But as people, spend time there and stabilize and maybe set new goals for themselves and they move on to different types of programming, then we have vacancies for people who are just leaving the shelter and really need that intensive support. Another thing that I would consider innovative that we're working on right now throughout our continuum is community development. So as many of you are probably aware, NIMBYism is rampant. The narratives in the media have become pretty intense for those of us providing these services lately. So in our experience, the best way to turn a NIMBY to a YIMBY is through education and exposure. So that's what we're working to do. We have block leadership, as Tabitha mentioned. You're giving a presentation tomorrow. It's an incredible initiative. Intercity is really leading the charge when it comes to incorporating people with lived and living experience in their programming. So kudos to you guys. We support the Block Leader program mostly just with the use of our facilities. And many of the people, the original block leaders, are people that were using shelter services that we provide together. We have community development officers that we employ internally. So those are people designated to each housing program that are really focused on addressing community concerns and integrating the community into our programs and the residents into the community. So activities, volunteer opportunities, and all that fun stuff. We have peer support, again, Tabitha touched on, so I won't go too much into that, but it's really powerful in creating healthy community norms in our programs. We have strategic partnerships, of course. Volunteer integration is another great way to make sure that our neighbors are getting into the programs and getting to know the residents. We're doing community cleanups, getting the residents out into the community so that they are very visibly making their communities a better place and enriching the community. We all know that they do that, but it's important for the NIMBYs to actually see that happening in their communities. And then finally, social initiatives. So we provide monetary incentives to be positively contributing to the residents itself and the property and the community. This is just a photo of members of our executive team at one of our newest builds. We're always aspiring to build, identify those gaps, and build new housing to provide for varying levels of need in our communities. Our vision is homes for all, community for all, hope for all, and we hope to achieve that together. And you can learn more here. Thank you so much.
So, Tansei Nido Tem, welcome everyone. My name is Eva Davis, and I'm a Métis Cree woman who is originally from the Treaty 8 territory in northern British Columbia, and I have been gratefully living here on the Algonquin Nation since 2014. So I started my work with the John Howard Society in 2017, and I'm currently the residential coordinator for our newest program, which is Housing for Women, so supportive housing for women. Today I'm going to talk about level 1 and level 2 supportive housing. Adrian and Tabitha have just knocked it out of the park. They really have led the charge here, all of their programming and supports, and really the work that John Howard Society does cannot be done without partnerships, and partnerships like the Shepherds of Good Hope and Intercity Health are exactly what we need to be successful. So for those who are unfamiliar with the agency, we are a nationwide nonprofit organization that is generally best known for supporting individuals who have been in conflict with the law. And so while that is still true, in the last decade, the Ottawa location has expanded greatly. We now have over 300 employees offering 24 different programs, and we work with a very diverse client group. So from a wide cross-section of social, cultural, and ethnic backgrounds that is truly representative of our broader community and the growing need for a variety of social supports. In these past number of years, I've had the pleasure of witnessing the incredible growth that we've experienced as an agency in our supportive housing sector. So from day one, 9 years ago, to today, we are now housing 139 adults who have exited long-term chronic homelessness. For today's presentation, I'm going to chat about all 4 of our housing programs. All 4 of the programs are operating under Housing First and harm reduction philosophies of service. And before I jump in, I just want to draw your attention to the photo on the slide. So this is our brand new main office building. It's essentially like an amalgamation of all of our programs under one roof. But when we built the building, we also added this additional 4-story tower of housing. So this is the Carling program, and it welcomed 40 additional units of housing for both men and women. So this program, being attached to our main office, also allows each resident there to easily access all of the services that are available to them. So the first 2 housing programs that we opened were the Rita Thompson residence and the Carruthers residence, which have already been touched on by Adrienne and Tabitha. So both of these programs are coined as enhanced supportive housing, which essentially acknowledges our full-time partnership with Intercity Health, and it is complete with all of the functions that Tabitha spoke of. It is also complete with functions of accessing hospice space for when our clients are unwell, and also TED when our clients are unwell and we're unable to manage them safely at home. So with the Intercity support, we are really at a unique advantage to provide some of the most integral care required when serving folks who've experienced extreme and pervasive homelessness. And as we know, the streets are really no place to find healing. So many of our residents who now reside in these programs came to us with a variety of chronic health issues. The Rita Thompson residence opened in September 2015 with 34 fully self-contained bachelor units. And at that time, 9 years ago, it was the first of its kind in Ontario. 3 years later, we did it again, and we opened the Carruthers program, which opened in 2018 with an additional 36 units. It was easy to see that the enhanced supportive housing model was working, and this really was really because of our incredible partnerships that we do have able to support us, right? To be able to provide intensive holistic wraparound supports, this Housing First and harm reduction model, it really truly allowed our teams to be able to successfully house some of the highest acuity and high need individuals in Ottawa. Regardless of complexities, whether that be addictions, terminal illnesses, traumatic brain injuries, or mental health needs, this was a space of belonging where there was no essential need that was left unmet. And with the medical supports that we had right by our side, it's just an incredible thing to witness. Through the creation of care plans and client-centered programming, it really was a fascinating place to work at. I was there for 4 years, and actually Darren Graham, who is our moderator, was my boss at the time. And yeah, so it's just incredible to witness. So once the residents are moving in, like we're meeting them where they're at, and it usually takes a good 3 to 6 months for some of those walls that they're moving in to come down. But once they see that we are serious about safety, that this is low barrier, that we are meeting every person where they're at, the transformation is incredible when people realize that they are truly safe. So with a double staffing model, general services include case management, life skills building, unit care, medication management, access to safer supply, and managed alcohol for those who need it. We provide options for food security. We have partnerships with food banks, soup kitchens, and of course, we cannot really forget about all the activities. So having a medical on-site partner is fantastic to manage all of those needs, but then what JHS does is we provide incredible social supports. We're able to really help create a community where there's autonomy and choice. What do you want to do? What do you need to experience? It's like teaching people how to find themselves again. What do they like? What do they enjoy? I also don't want to forget holidays, group outings, celebrating birthdays, and major milestones. Working in these programs is the only time that I've been offered birthday cake over 30 times a year. We celebrate every single birthday. Every single one. And so the last item I want to note before moving on is also just to acknowledge the ongoing opiate crisis. In all of our programs, we work tirelessly to ensure people's wellness. And in these programs, that meant the development of our own internal peer-led overdose prevention team, the residential peers that was spoke of earlier. And so really, we are working together. We're working together, staff and clients, to look out for one another, to look out for our neighbors in the building. We also began installing Brave buttons that were just spoken of, but I have a sample here to show you. So it's a quick access button, and what these buttons do is if you push it once, we're going to be coming. We're going to come within 5 minutes, but if you push it twice, we're coming right now. And so in all of our buildings, we know that this is a quick response, and it has been working incredibly with the incentivizing that has been done from our other teams. And now that we've implemented this in our level 2 housings, even without on-site health partnerships, the button has been incredible. So we'll talk more about that. Working in this field really is not for the faint of heart, right? We grow close to our clients. We really care about them. We get to know them as whole people. Men and women who, maybe perhaps have lost their way. But for us, when we see them, they are everyday people at home. So moving on to the next 2 housing programs, the Carling Residence is brand new. It opened in January 2023, so celebrating its 2nd year anniversary in just a few more months. The program is just a little bit different than RTR and Carruthers. And so the difference between the level 1 and level 2 is that level 2, we don't have an on-site health partner. So this is a double staffing model that is comprised of just JHS staff teams, a coordinator, a couple case managers, support workers, and we're doing all of the same work in a sense as our enhanced supportive housing, but we don't have an on-site health partner. So without that, it kind of leans towards the idea that residents in these programs are more of a moderate acuity level. However, we are still supporting individuals in active addiction, polysubstance use with varying mental health diagnoses, some on safe supply, perhaps on methadone, and some with manageable chronic health conditions. We can still provide daily medication management as well, which is really cool due to our incredible partnership with Respect RX, who delivers meds for our clients on a daily basis, which allows my team to be able to stay super organized, and we can see easily who hasn't accessed their meds, and it also prevents us from having to count any narcotics. So that's nice too. Where I lost my spot, sorry. Overall, what we've learned without an on-site health partner is that we're still serving the same demographic. However, due to the limitation of without an on-site health partner, there's just a little bit of a barrier to who might be a good match for services. And so, oh, where did it go? Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Just making sure I didn't do that. So yeah, there are limitations to who might be a good match for services. So coming from working in a level 1 housing space where it was like open door policy, yes, come home, let me help you. Where now, when we began opening our level 2, we had to kind of like, what does this mean, right? Like who's a good match for services? And without an on-site health partner, essentially it means that, for example, somebody whose level of drinking might be more than what we can safely manage at home, they might be better suited for a managed alcohol program. So really, it's been tricky delineating between, is this person someone that we can house and safely support, or would they be better suited for another program? Another example would be, we had moved in a lovely 70-year-old Indigenous woman, but what we didn't know is that she was reaching kidney failure and she would be on dialysis soon. And so again, like we didn't have capacity to safely monitor and house this woman, and she ended up moving to long-term care, right? We work very closely with all of our community health centers, Indigenous service providers, hospitals, and we have really unique partnerships with several other collateral agencies. All of the same community events take place in all of our programs. So from a JHS team lens, Breakfast is served daily. We have multiple activities, group outings, holidays, all special events. And for example, I'm sure each and every program is doing a Halloween party this week. Okay, so the last program that I want to chat about today is the Lisgar Residence. So this is JHS's first all-women supportive housing program, which opened on January 29th of this year. So very brand new. It is also a level 2 housing program, but essentially follows the same housing model as the Carling program. We're an all-female staff team, double staff program, medication management, wellness checks, Brave buttons, and we're providing clean, safe consumption supplies, options for food security with all the fun stuff as well. But what is different is that we're really unique compared to the other 3 programs as we are Indigenous focused. Working in partnership with Minwash and Lodge, and who are in the room today, we've really created something special. So the funding for this project actually came from the first round of the federal government's Rapid Housing Initiative, and it came with a directive that the program would be developed for women experiencing homelessness with a focus on Indigenous women. And so when JHS received this capital project, we knew we had a lot of work to do. As a mainstream organization and as an Indigenous woman myself, I really knew that our first priority required us to begin establishing strong connections with Indigenous service providers to hear their needs, their concerns, and to ensure that we were developing a deeply meaningful program with the utmost care. 3 years later, we're now open and officially home to 29 adult women who have exited chronic homelessness. We prioritize a minimum of 70% of our units for Indigenous women. Being on board of this project as far in advance as I was, it really gave me the time and space to kind of conceptualize what it might be like for a chronically homeless Indigenous woman moving into permanent supportive housing. And with my experience in other programs where it's more male-oriented, I knew at least it had to feel different, right? I wanted a space that would speak to women, a space that would both be gender and culturally responsive, and a space that would be developed for women specifically, and Indigenous women at the very top of mind. So how did we do this? Our spirit and intention starts here. There were a few times where I had been asked in the very beginning, how is JHS going to support Indigenous women and what is your intention? You can imagine the tone that might have came with some of that questions, but that question came to me often. And it meant a lot to me. It forced me to think outside the standard status quo of what supportive housing is. And as an advocate for actionable reconciliative work, I came up with one question that has guided me. How can we reduce the harms of colonialism in supportive housing? What does that look like? And so to me, it begins with partnerships, relationships that are built on trust and strong connection. It means working within a mainstream system that doesn't accurately address or capture the needs of Indigenous people and then finding ways to address those gaps. In our roles, it means that we are decolonizing our approaches to clinical work and support work through the language we use and infusing traditional knowledge, Indigenous ways of knowing and being, letting the women lead. Nothing about us without us. Lots of consultation. And in our physical building, while we were limited to what changes we could make to the walls and the doors, we held all the creative rights to color, shape, texture, lighting, use of space, and access to land. With working within limitations, we collaborated with an Indigenous architect, and we were able to kind of infuse indigeneity into the build. And lastly, it also means that I am looking at ways to diversify our hiring practices to ensure representation in our staffing. We need Indigenous women. We need Indigenous women working within our program. Having a formal education is a privilege, and it's a privilege that not everyone is able to attain. So accepting a combination of relevant training and experience, lived or professional, is also a form of decolonization. There are really good people out there who want to do this work. And so before I take you away, I just want to walk you through a quick slideshow of our building. So on this first page, our front lobby mural and a vacant furnished unit. As you can see, it's just a single bachelor suite. Everything comes partially furnished. This mural it's a vinyl applique. It's by Alana Jewell, Morningstar Designs. I follow her on Instagram. She's lovely. You should follow her. We have an open concept kitchen and communal living space. So this is very different than all of our other programs. Each other housing program with JHS has a locked kitchen. And so I really wanted to feel like when you're looking at things through a trauma-informed lens, like when you're walking into a physical space, how many doors and locks do you really need? And so I wanted to limit that. Another option that I had was not having those steel gray doors. Like, yes, they're indestructible, but why can't we try something different? So having the solid wood core doors adds just a whole other level of warmth and welcoming. We have a private visitation room just for naps or professional visitors. Maybe one of the women are having a hard time sleeping at night. It's lonely, it's too dark, it's too quiet, so they want to be closer to staff so they can watch TV downstairs. And even though we don't have an on-site health partner, I still created a nurse lounge just in case there's a lovely nurse out there that wants to start connecting with us on a more regular basis. We did recently find a nurse, her name is Misha, and she works for the Centertown Community Health Center. And then this is our backyard and gardening space. So even though we don't have like green space, we have an underground parking lot. Working with our Indigenous architects, like it was really important that we were infusing indigeneity into our design so that it just felt right. So by using natural wood, shape, color, and you'll see that the circle shape around our 7 raised garden planters is to represent the 13 moon cycle. And so in all these spaces, we are able to hold talking circles, ceremony, we smudge regularly, we offer country food, we partner with lots of Indigenous organizations, TI, Minwashin, Wabano, lots of Indigenous partners that come to see us at the building. And we often hold just lunches, like invite hey, you want to come for lunch? We're going to do just for like a meet and greet so that we can really continue to build those relationships. And so I think that's really the end for me. And there is just one quote. I think I might be over time and I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if anybody has ever heard of a Mi'kmaq teaching called two-eyed seeing. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah, it's really incredible. So it's been implemented mostly in like academia or maybe in the medical realm, but I really truly think that it can be applied in all aspects of services, and I think it is a tool that we can use as a way forward with reconciliation. It's an approach where we are able to blend together an Indigenous worldview and a Western worldview, and taking the benefits and all the learnings that we know. There's so many benefits to Western knowledge that we are all living and working with today in this colonized world. But if we can balance that with an Indigenous worldview and work together, that is two-eyed seeing, and that is the way that we should be working. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Devika, and I'm from Cornerstone Housing for Women. I'm going to talk about aging in home program that we have at Booth Street. But before I talk about that, I want to talk to you about Jane. Jane was born in Ottawa. She was 7 years old when she was first sexually abused. She was 13 years old when she was addicted to alcohol and other substances. And by the time she was 18, she was on the streets. She had a whole life, but she had challenges. By the time she was 50, she didn't have a place. She had challenges that she couldn't face anymore, and she needed support, and she needed them now. Aging in home at Booth is a place for women that have been more than 50, 55 years of age. We do have residents who are younger, but the common theme about our residents at Booth is that they have complex medical needs. We work with Ottawa Inner City Health, and they provide client care workers that are on site 24/7. And before I go into the details, I'll talk to you more about the program. At Booth Street, we have 42 beds. 21 of them are for our residential services that we work with Ottawa Inner City Health, and these are our aging at home residents. Our intent is to house the aging population to provide the well-rounded care that they need without going anywhere else. So we have nurses on site, sometimes 2 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. We have mental health nurses, we have physical health nurses coming in. Okay. We're dedicated to empowering individuals to age gracefully in their own homes. At Cornerstone, we believe that this is their home, not our office. So we go into their home to work. We're there for them. We support them in any way that they need, be it in the form of medical support, be it in the form of harm reduction supplies, be it in the form of a clinical chaplain that we have. So any form of support that they need, we gather around and we make sure that we're able to support them in the way they need. We meet them where they are instead of bringing them to us. Everyone has different needs, and add on to that age, gender, there is medical needs. There are so many complex factors, and we understand that and we accept them. Among our services, we have holistic support. We have access to resources that is challenging to access for our residents. There is stigma around being an addict. So instead of them not being able to access the resources that they need, we make sure that we bridge that gap and we bring them to what they need. We advocate for them. We service them in the way that they need. Together, we foster a nurturing environment that honors the dignity and promotes the well-being in every stage of life. As I mentioned, most of our residents are 55 and above at the Aging at Home program in Booth, but we do have some residents who are younger. Those are our community clients that we support with Ottawa Inner City Health, but we also have our staff supporting them. When I talk about Booth, I wanted to ensure that you saw what is special about Booth. But before I talk about the specialities of Booth, let me talk to you about Cornerstone and all our houses in general. It'll be very quick. So Cornerstone has one shelter. We're in Carling Avenue, which now houses 150 residents, and in the winter we're about to go to 165 beds every night. We provide emergency shelter to women and gender diverse folk in Ottawa. We also have 4 supportive housing locations, and every supportive housing location for us is very different. I'm going to talk about Booth, but we also have Princeton, where we have a commitment to house as many Indigenous ladies as possible. But the minimum is about 30%, and we always have more than 50% Indigenous women in that program. We also have Eccles, which is brand new. We've just started in April. We house 46 women there. We also have McLaren, which is towards the end of the spectrum, where they are mostly independent and they don't have 24-hour support. We also have McPhail, which is mostly independent housing. We don't even have a staff there. They live on their own, they manage their lives, and they are still supported if they need, but their needs are primary and low acuity. At Booth, we have a mix of moderate to high acuity that we support, be it medical, be it addiction, be it anything that they might need. When we talk about medical care for our residents at Booth Street, we have 24/7 client care workers available on site every day, 24/7, 365 days a week. We also have support staff, which is Cornerstone staff on site. We have case managers, we have program managers, we have nurses on site. So that's the staff at Booth that we'd have on site. We also arrange for referrals, be it Wabano, be it other healthcare providers. We also have staff that support them by going to those medical appointments with them, because a lot of times when somebody goes to a hospital, they're not treated the same way, unfortunately. So having someone being an advocate for them takes away their anxiety and makes sure that they get the care that they need. We have trained client workers, we have comprehensive support. So it's not like when we say residential services and supportive housing that, hey, I'm not going to support the residential services client because they're not my client. We're a team. The complex needs need that client care worker to be there, but we support everyone together. Most of the times, I wouldn't even realize being who's a residential services client and a supportive housing client, because we treat everyone the same way. But they are able to access more services with Ottawa Inner City Health. We also have rehabilitation services. So a lot of our clients go to the hospital, come back, and they have a discharge plan, but no support to follow it through. And that can lead to them going to the hospital again because they were not able to follow what they needed. We have rehabilitation services, so they are able to get physical therapy, breast screening, hygiene support to make sure that they're healthy and they stay healthy. We also have PSWs coming in to make sure that they get that assistance because, and at Booth, we don't have the brave buttons. We do have panic buttons for our residential services clients because sometimes they just need help getting out of bed and they're not able to, get that. So we have staff on site where, we have nightly wellness checks. So at Booth, we make sure that we see all our residents throughout the day. If we're not able to see them, we do a check-in every afternoon and every night to make sure that they're in bed, they're safe, or in the building if we don't know their whereabouts. It's very empowering for them to see that they are being cared for. Because a lot of times, our different houses have different timelines for wellness checks, but at Booth, because they need that help, they want to see that they're cared for, and it's a balance. Sometimes they're like, why are you entering my room? But some of the times they're like, what if I fell? No one would check on me. And sometimes we cross that boundary and we're like, no, we care for you. We're gonna come in even if you don't like it. So that is the kind of balance that we have to maintain with our clients. And yeah, as all families do, so we're in their home, right? As I mentioned before, and we're a family. Staff is family, our clients are our family. We fight, but we make up. It happens. Sometimes our residents will come to the office and be like, you shouldn't have done that. This is not the way it's supposed to be. But they've agreed to it beforehand. Maybe they're having an off day. Maybe they just thought that nobody wanted to, care for them. Sometimes you have to prioritize something else, and it's difficult. As we talk in our meeting sometimes, I have to remind myself, like having these women as our clients, it's like we're having kids. These are our kids, and don't get fooled by their age. They might be 55 and above, but they are kids. They have to line up for their food because we do have kitchen fights. So, they have to line up. We have to have some rules in place. And with that structure, they're still able to live as independently as they can. But at any given time, they know we're just a minute away. So that kind of repertoire that we have with them makes it a home. Like when I come to work, I don't feel like I'm going to work. I feel like I'm coming home. I'm leaving my home for another home. And that is the truth. This is their home. For most of them, at the shelter, as everyone mentioned, the continuum of care that we have, they come into our shelter, which is a transitional time. It can be 3 days, it can be 6 months, sometimes even more. But they go on to our supportive housing locations. And from there, sometimes they move into community housing or even independent housing. And they're all success stories. But for Aging at Home program particularly, we realize that it is their permanent house for most of them. And we're okay with that. We like them. We like that we're able to support them in the way that they need, right? We also have our spiritual chaplain. Her name is Reverend Hillary. She is able to support all of our locations with spiritual care. She facilitates healing circles. She's also a clinical social worker. She is trained in psychotherapy as well. So she is trauma informed. She has the ability to, navigate situations, provide complex mental health support for clients that they need. We also have, and I said about Reverend Hillary, but the thing is, she's a reverend, but she encompasses spirituality more than religion. So when she provides care, it's not Christian care; it's everything. Like we have services about Remembrance Day that includes talking about whatever you have in the past. It's not just about veterans, but it's just a small example. But that's what she does. She brings healing in the way that the clients need while having that complex understanding of the issues. We also partner with Minawashan Lodge. They do programming at all of our locations. And it's open to everyone. It's open to all our clients, not just indigenous clients. And that helps talk and curiosity about culture, and that promotes being, open to everyone. And it's not a club. It's more so, hey, we're sitting at the dining table and we're gonna chat. Sometimes they do beading. Sometimes they do. They make dream catchers. As part of Cornerstone Crew, I'm happy that I'm also learning to do, learn dream catchers, because that's what it is: accepting one another, accepting one another's culture, and bringing it forth. We're also follow a harm reduction framework. Our client-centered approach helps us to meet clients where they are. Our clients are so frank, sometimes too frank. They come to us and be like, hey, I just smoked 6 rocks and I need something. And they will go on. Especially if you're working overnight, that's a reality. The thing is that it shows us that they're open about it. And they know that they can speak to us, and they're not thinking, oh, this person is going to think something about me. And the fact that our clients can come and talk about it openly because they know that we're not judging them. If for some reason they don't feel good for any reason, be it medically, be it because of drugs, they know that at night we're going to be able to reach them. Sometimes, especially overnights, some of the clients just want to talk, right? They come at 2 o'clock and sometimes stay with us till 4 a.m. just talking about it. And it can be anything. It can be about a business idea that they had. It can be about a friend that they met on the street. It can be about anything. But that's what I think is beautiful about Booth Street, because they know that they have that care and somebody cares all the time, right? There's no judgmental attitude. We give them access to safe supplies, and it's not even that they have to come to us. For harm reduction supplies, they're available all throughout the building. For safe supplies, they have to come for client care workers and the nurses. But that's Booth Street. And I encourage you all to come visit us at Booth Street. I'm sure you'll feel at home. Thank you.
It's my first time moderating a session like this, and we are 3 minutes over, which I think is a huge success. Well done. Another round of applause for all of the presenters, please. The hard part's over. Now you have to field questions. Does anybody have any questions in the audience for any of the presenters? In the back, yeah.
Additional therapy and the question is there a time for taking additional therapy? 24 hours.
So the question was for shepherds around longevity of being able to stay at the shelter and how long people generally stay at the shelter before making their way to supportive housing.
There we go. We don't have a time limit. We don't kick someone out if they've been with us for 6 months or longer. Like, we won't say, time's up, you've got to go. I will say that the length of time that people generally stay at our shelter, it varies a lot. And I can't speak confidently to what the average is. I'm so sorry, I don't have a number, but there are people that end up in our shelter for months or years at a time, and not for lack of trying, but there are capacity concerns and availability of housing concerns, and then just personal agency. Some people are just not at a point in their lives that they're ready to move on to housing yet. We welcome those individuals for as long as they need us, and we're there when they are ready to start that conversation. We are there, but there's no time limit, and some folks are with us for a few days, some folks are with us for years at the shelter programs. Thank you. My CEO is right here in the front. He just told me that about 15% of the people at the shelter at any given time are experiencing chronic homelessness, and chronic homelessness is classified as 180 or more shelter stays in a year period.
Thank you. I saw a question here.
The button, the Brave button. How many thousands of dollars are we talking about?
Well, if you look online, $2,000 one-time implementation, $100 a year per month.
The button. Thank you.
And some units will have two, like we have residents that like, I like one in the bathroom too. It's always like, especially like when Echoes was first built, we went in before residents were in there, so placing the buttons where you think people might use, and all the units are very different. But what's really great is they're not hardwired, so they are movable with a sticky tape, which is great. They're chargeable, so they're very functional that you can move them around, but yeah.
So you don't give them to the clients per se, the clients go to the button.
Yeah, so and then if you typically use, like you have a bachelor and you typically use by your table, it could be right there by the table. If you tend to smoke in your washroom, bang, we'll put that in there, whatever floats your boat.
I'm one of the housing directors in Hawaii. That's too dark. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and info about Brave Buttons is super accessible online. Like, if you're interested, just Google it. But it's really incredible. It's saving lives.
They also have those washroom detectors, like that
Yeah.
detect people stop moving in the washroom as well, which wasn't feasible at Ships because of the shower curtain thing, but yes.
Yeah, but there will be sensors in one of our new builds in the publicly accessible washrooms. We're actually going to have sensors so that if someone is sitting on a toilet motionless for, I can't remember for how long, I think it's like 3 or 5 minutes or something, we will be alerted and we'll be able to go check on them, which is hopefully, again, will save lives.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I worked for 70 years. I was like when I first started working in the street, I never saw this. I'm not a clinician, but I'm responsible for stories and parties, common stories. So one thing I'm very surprised and also probably surprised. One was 21 years of shelters, artists, testify, last week, I anticipated the next number required. So the first question is, I wondered how that changed your support in the process to extremely horrifying. And I'd like to see that compromise. That's great. The second question is leadership. Leadership is folks. Minister has integration. That doesn't seem to be I'm delighted to see that inclusivity and awareness of privacy is kind of
So I can speak on the traumatic brain injury part. We know that folks with traumatic brain injuries are 15 times more likely to have substance use problems. And now we're having this hypoxic brain injury, so that's a lack of oxygen to the brain causing the brain injury, which is in turn repeating more people are using drugs. What we notice with our clientele is that folks are much more angry. Their memory, they're losing their memory, which again is making them angry because they don't understand what's going on with them. And then even more so, poor impulse control and inability to follow direction, even though simply. So we're viewing everybody as high acuity, and I think our best measure of how we deal with this is to educate staff, educate community, and educate the residents or clients themselves that this may be indeed happening to them. I know within our supervised consumption site, we can estimate how long people are probably without oxygen because we see an overdose happen. But for the ones that we respond to outside, you don't know how long somebody's been down, and you don't know how many times that has happened to them today, this week, this month. So the implications of what is happening today will not be seen for probably 5 or 6 years to come, but just to be prepared that the majority of our clientele will be high acuity. With your newcomers?
Yeah, I mean,
We need a pop-up.
I can speak to newcomers and maybe some of the others can as well. So we're certainly seeing the impact of many new individuals to Canada in our shelter programs. At Shepherds of Good Hope, our housing programs are generally very harm reduction focused, and many of the individuals that we're housing have substance use concerns. So people who are new to Canada without substance use concerns, we wouldn't necessarily recommend that they come into our housing programs unless they do have pre-existing substance use concerns, because I mean, it affects everyone worldwide, of course. But so interestingly, we're not seeing a lot of new residents from who are new to Canada in our housing programs. They generally end up in our shelter programs and then referred to other agencies that do have that specialized refugee and immigration support. I don't know if things are different for you guys. No?
No.
Nothing to add? Okay.
We just need a pop-up of all the main players, and like if folks met each other and could, you know what I mean, they could rent units with their funds together, and I think a lot of people are just jammed up in this bottleneck.
Yeah.
I know, like for our Block Leader program, we have a lot of newcomers. Folks want to be a part of the community. It's like a petri dish of building community too. You get new folks. We have non-users working with newcomers. We got users working with newcomers. So it's really nice to see, but a lot of folks are just in this limbo. They don't have, and then they end up in shelter and lose their paperwork, and then that you can't even talk to a human. So
Yeah.
we do need like a pop-up of all
So
the
true.
entities to get people ready to work legally in Canada, get that status, get your health care, but it's difficult. So.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
Yeah, I was curious a bit more about the story of the Block Leaders program. I work for a city where we're trying to switch more to a non-enforcement response, and traditionally our response has been conditional bylaw, but we know that that's not the best response in a lot of cases. So I was curious if you could tell the story about how that program got started, maybe some of the challenges, and also some of the wins that you're seeing.
So I'll take a little bit of time to do it. I am speaking tomorrow 10 a.m. On the backside of a thing in room 104, I think. But initially it was started like stakeholders in the Byron market felt like it was unsafe, and we were having same meetings with our residents at the shelter coming out of the pandemic, and everybody thought the issues were the same: cleanliness, safety, discarded needles. So everybody agreed that the problem was the same thing, and our community members said that they could take part and do certain things for their community. So they go around, they pick up garbage, they pick up needles, they help folks meet their basic needs, they'll refer people, they do overdose prevention, they run community events, and they're paid for their time. They help develop the training that block leaders take. They're paid for their training, paid for their time, and it has really grown exponentially in the last 2 years. And we have over 200 trained block leaders, and most recently did an expansion to be on call for the Byward Market businesses from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. So it is really nice to see it's for the community, by the community, and we continue to have regular weekly meetings where block leaders bring up issues about work or shifts or things like that, and they can be dealt with as a community. I know one of our largest issues downtown is like water, washrooms, that type of thing. So discussing as a community how we can deal with that, how we can make partnerships, how we can use washrooms and allow, so our block leaders are able to open up the shelter and let people use a washroom as so long as they're supervised. Only out, not in, that's what we say. But yeah, so it's a really exciting program, and it gives people opportunity and hope. And so a lot of people who work through the block leadership program will get hired by us on payroll for team lead position, and they supervise shifts and teach folks, and it just keeps on giving, right? It gives people an opportunity.
The shift structure.
The shift structure?
Yeah.
So we have block shifts, so that are generally focused around the Shepherds of Good Hope. So we have 6 people work 3 times a day, so they're 2-hour shifts. Super, you don't have to be sober, so long as you're not on your face. Like we realized that people initially who were only able to do half a shift are now working in the Byward Market in 3-hour shifts. So there are shifts that are 3 hours long in the Byward Market and 2 hours on the block. So some folks will be just situated, they have routes, they got little cards, they can tell community members where they're going, and they have all their supplies that they need with them. If they're within the block space, they can also call our TED program for overdoses, but other than that, they call 911, and we just keep building on that training. We have regular meetings. They want to learn about bipolar disorder. We will present them on that, just how to best help their community members and to feel a part of it. Really gaining that lived experience voice, I think is really important.
You guys are so awesome.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to add on newcomers that come. So we were able to open a shelter as an emergency because we had people from our community coming and they were homeless. So we opened the shelter in March for women. So what we did, we connect the residents with our community centers that are in that have like resources for newcomers, all the paperwork. So, but there's no agent that's paid on that shelter. So we have 13 beds, and so far we thought it was going to be just for a few months, and they will move on. Now the housing in Ottawa is not working, so they've been there for 6 months. So it's one of people coming and saying, you know what, we want to come in the shelters and we want to have all the information for it. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we did to answer. So we thought it was just for a few months, but now
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, and we can see so many houses are opening in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So yeah, trying to help.
Thank you for that information. It's, yeah, the need continues to grow, it seems, so, yeah.
Stephen?
Maybe not really a question, but maybe more of a statement for the panel and actually just for the room. But like when I watch this presentation, you really see the magic of the continuum, not only between the 4 organizations, but the city. And you know, it reminds me of each level of government working collaboratively together too. And in the last few years, we've seen the federal government, you know, push capital money out pretty successfully to build supportive housing. And we've seen the municipal government step up to give operating dollars for these agencies. But what we're not seeing with any level of consistency is the provincial government to give the wraparound health supports. So when we see how successful this model is, it's just a reminder to all of these organizations and everyone in this room that when the RFPs come out again, that we all have to have a really strong voice to say that we're not coming to the table unless the provincial government, the municipal government, and the federal government are all putting the money up front. Because if we don't do that, then what happens is we're building these great parts of the continuum, but we don't have the wraparound supports. And I think we all know that our programs work best when we're all invested in that continuum. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely good point.
One of the things that, one of the things we discussed as a panel before we started today was around the tension of all of these providers having the duties and responsibilities of being a landlord as well as providing this level of intensity and, from some people's perspective, intrusive supports that I remember tension around for my time doing it. But I was wondering if before we end our session, we could explore some of those realities and struggles, because we presented an amazing system that works quite well, but it's certainly not firing in all cylinders. The province isn't necessarily at the table frequently, but also within partnership, there's tension between healthcare, social services, and those roles of being a landlord as well. Sort of square peg, round hole, So I'm wondering if all of you wanted to speak to that before we end the day or the session.
I can speak towards that. So working with the John Howard Society, I've been working in their supportive housing sector right from the beginning. So I started really as a support worker, frontline, moved into case management. So you see the different functions of a program. And as you're meeting individuals who are coming in from shelter, they're transitioning into housing, and what does that feel like? Now they have their own space, their own door, and they're learning what it means to be semi-independent. But then there's rules, right? There's boundaries. There's certain policies and limitations to what can and can't happen within a building. There's breakfast rules. There's tension about money management, or maybe somebody's overstayed a guest policy. So we're working with fully functioning adults, like adult humans, who want to have all the autonomy that each of us have in our lives, but there are limitations. So when some of those boundaries are crossed, or perhaps we have to have what's it called? Just a tenant review or a warning or a conversation, it can really be detrimental to that therapeutic rapport that we're having with the clients. I have a lot of really lovely relationships with the women, but even speaking as a coordinator now, there are situations that come up that the women are furious about. Why can't we do this? Why is this happening? How come it can't change? I'm an adult. Why are you telling me this? And the tension is there. And so as much as possible, we try to resolve conflict, amongst ourselves. We do a little mediation. Everybody gets space. It is a tricky balance for sure. But at no point in time, and I think it takes time for the women or the clients to understand, eviction is the furthest thing from our mind. And so in those moments when there's an elevated individual in front of us, often, well, kick me out, throw me out. What are you going to do? Well, we're going to give it some space. And why don't you come back, maybe later on today, and we can try to chat about this again. We're going to circle back to those conversations as many times as we need to, but protecting the therapeutic rapport that we have with our clients is most important. But that doesn't mean that it's not extremely difficult sometimes, right? Especially when we are, navigating aggressive incidences or serious occurrences, right? And so there is often a hard line when it comes to violent altercations. And so working within, legal realms or our limitations as a program, it can be really difficult, but we're always looking to protect someone's longevity in housing.
If I can just add as well, one thing that we experience at Shepherd's is tensions among ourselves as landlords and the staff that are providing care in the programs, because many of them come from shelter programming where if there's a violent incident or somebody crosses a line, see you later, right? But the important thing for us to help educate our own staff and the community and everyone about is that people living in supportive housing are tenants. They have rights. They signed a lease. They pay rent. We can't just say, see you later, right, if they start to cross these lines. So it's really about using all of the tools in your tool belt to help manage the behaviors, protect the relationship, and help people be successful, while also, if it comes to it, and again, it's a last resort, if people are consistently crossing lines and engaging in violence or putting themselves or others at risk, you do have to explore, the legal side of things and take that kind of progressive route toward eviction if it comes to that. It is really challenging, and of course, we would never want to see someone return into homelessness, but as service providers, there are certain lines that can't be crossed so that we can protect ourselves and our staff and our infrastructure. So it's really tricky. It is really, really tricky.
And then on that same note, I would say as partners within you being the housing provider and us trying to provide healthcare, sometimes seeing eye to eye on the same situation is difficult,
Yeah.
right? And that's why you really have to formulate your communication process, who, what, when, where, why, so that things can be dealt with adequately. And the same with residents go to other buildings and there's different rules. And they're over there stirring the pot. Well, they're allowed to do that. I want to move there. They
Yeah.
pay this. It becomes, and then they're back at frontline staff, it becomes
exactly.
this thing.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to navigate 100%, right? Folks have a right to housing. Folks have a right to be able to live in communal living. Staff have a right to be able to work within that space and provide service. Everybody needs to feel comfortable, and it is definitely a juggling act, 100%, but the way you get through that is through clear, open communication.
Unit care is integral. When the residents are moving in and they've lived on the street, maybe this is the first time in a long time or ever that they've ever had their own space. Maybe they haven't had to do laundry, take out their garbage, wash their dishes, sweep their floor. Maybe there's food, boxes, and we know that this can quickly lead to infestation or just unhygienic and undignified living spaces. We're also working regularly with hoarding, so all of that needs to be managed on a regular basis. We do not. We do the unit care. We do not hire out for that. Absolutely. So part of the role of our support staff, case managers, and myself included as a coordinator is to model what that looks like. So I am in the units just as much as my case managers and my support staff are. We do monthly unit checks to ensure that we're keeping an eye on all the spaces. And if we know there's a hot spot in the building, we're up there way more often. And not to forget, we're also completing safety checks twice per day throughout all the building. There's absolutely no reason if I'm going into a woman's room to do a safety check, she's not there, but I see rotten food, you darn right I'm coming right back with a garbage bag to fill it up, throw away everything that doesn't look good. It is a process. It's not one person's job. It's not even something that I think should be hired out to do, because we have to remember this is also about safety, invasion of privacy. These are their homes, so they want people that they can trust. Something that works really well that we implemented at the Rita Thompson residence before I exited was that we identified, out of the 34 units, maybe we had about a dozen hotspots. So instead of putting a person on unit care in the evening shift, day shift, we started to pair staff. So if we have consistent staff team members, if we have a consistent day staff, 2 evening workers, 2 overnight workers, and the weekend staff as well, we're now matching clients with a team member who will say, this is your support for unit care. Mariah is going to meet with you every single Saturday and Sunday when she's here, and she's going to support you with your life skills, and we're going to get in there and we're going to do that unit care. Pest control management is 100% our responsibility, and it begins with prevention. And so prevention means keeping those spaces clean. Nobody wants to deal with bed bugs and cockroaches, and I'm telling you, I've been there. I've done the whole shebang, and it's our responsibility to get in there and do that, because we also have to protect the clients who are living in those spaces. right? So they might not be able to quickly identify that they've seen some creepy crawlies, but I'm gonna see that and I'm gonna be like, we need to get in this room, we need to put some traps, we're calling an exterminator. But all of that work, at least at the John Howard Society, lands with the team. And it is my role to lead by example. So, and I'm very clear also in my hiring process about some of the inherent risks that are involved when working in supportive housing, so that my team members are aware that we are getting in those spaces. You will be exposed to paraphernalia. It is potentially pests. We are absolutely managing lice from like time and time again. Lice keeps coming back, and we're doing those head treatments. Like, this is our job. If somebody needs support flushing toilets, we're going in. If we know someone is, yeah.
The thing is what we've run into, because we went from a hotel shelter situation and then built units.
Yeah.
So we transitioned actually only 67 so far. So we've got 92 units. We transitioned 67. So chronic clients who've been living in the hotel shelter, all very high,
Yeah.
into their own units now. So we've inherited all the same problems we've had with them upstairs when they were saying, get out of my life.
Yeah.
To do with you, right? They're kind of doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to help them maintain housing, more of a supportive thing, because these are the folks that know what everyone.
Yeah.
Right? So we're just finding so many challenges with that.
We also have,
From one extreme where they're just so quick
Yeah.
to the next, and we don't know how it happened within 2 days. They're quick.
it's quick. Part of our intake package before any of our residents move in also requires them to sign a unit care agreement and a pest control management agreement. You know, as landlords of these buildings, we have a right to make sure that these spaces are, you know, it's not going to affect the rest of the building. So, you know, unfortunately, those are some of the tensions that we were talking about, and that is a boundary that we have to cross, whether you like it or not. We are coming in at 10 a.m. the next morning. Yeah, the work must be done, but it has to be done in a way that is empathetic, lots of communication. We're meeting people where they're at, and trust me, like, I've had people straight up tell me they hate me and hold grudges for a long, long time. But you know what? They were living in a dignified space that they didn't have before by the time I left, right? And so if you're gonna be mad at me because I did your dishes and took out your garbage, fine by me. Yeah.
I find social initiatives work too.
Yeah.
So you get residents from within side. Like, I've got somebody on my team who's doing it for cigarettes. You bring out garbage from your room, you'd be getting cigarettes. And sometimes they'll team up together, get them to sign up together as a pair, and all of us can clean the room. So with staff and with your co-resident, we're going to learn how to do this thing. I think it takes all angles.
All angles. It's
hard.
Very ongoing and very challenging all over the place with this. And we need to do this to maintain a safe space for them as well as us. And right.
Yeah. It can get out of control really quickly. Yeah.
So we're at time now. If anyone has any other further questions, we're going to stick around for a little bit to answer them. But one final round of applause for the presenters, please.
See ya.